force. Officers responded to a suicidal male with a gun call. This slide here, you can see it's inside the neighborhood, kind of by Richards and Amsterdam there. So it is inside a kind of a tight neighborhood there. So, you know, as officers are responding, those are kind of some of the things that they're taking into consideration as a tactical as they're approaching the scene. The suspect is Robert Schaefer. As you can see, he's 60 years old, lives at 4112 Ruskin Drive there. He does have a little bit of a criminal history for domestic violence assault and some traffic violations. However, those arrests never resulted in any convictions. They were dismissed 2018 and 2020, I believe. Next slide, please. All right, so first thing we're going to do is going to go through the officers. We had 3 officers fired. The first officer was Officer Jacoby Whitaker. He's a 39-year-old white male. He was hired in July of 2017. He was working Unit 610 that night, which is a Scott Park Field Operations. He was working a 2-officer unit, and he has no active discipline. Second officer is Officer Nathan Inslee. He's a 24-year-old white male. He was hired in June of 2022, working 7-Eleven, also from Scott Park, 2-officer unit, and also has no active discipline. The final officer that fired was Officer Alex Simpson. He's a 28-year-old white male. He was hired in June of 2018. He was working a 1-officer unit, Unit 820, out of Scott Park. He does have a couple discipline incidents in his file, mainly for accidents, which we call rules for department vehicles. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is play the 911 call. It is a little hard to hear at times. You know, you have a female caller in distress. There's a lot of movement inside the house, so she's kind of talking about her husband, how he's moving around with a weapon. Some of the important things to listen to is her talking about having the rifle, eventually having it in his hands, and the fact that she says he wants to die. So we'll go ahead and play this 911 call.
Where is your emergency?
At 4112 Ruskin Drive.
Okay. Is that a house duplex or apartment?
House.
Okay, that's 4112 Ruskin, near Clifton?
Yeah.
What's your name?
Lori Schaefer.
What's going on?
My husband's intoxicated and he has a shotgun and he's talking about killing himself.
Do you have the shotgun?
Yeah.
Is the shotgun out?
Yeah, he's got it.
You bet the gun is out, right?
Yeah.
Where's he at?
In the living room, I'm in the garage.
You're in the living room?
No, I'm in the garage. He says he's gonna kill himself.
Okay, what's his name?
Robert Schaefer.
Is he white, black, or Hispanic?
White.
What's he wearing? What color shirt? What color pants?
Black shorts, black pants, I believe.
A black shirt, black pants?
Black shorts and black pants. Or black shorts and black shirt.
Okay, and what's your phone number?
419-277-911.
Okay, we have help on the way to you, okay?
Alright.
I'm gonna stay on the line here with you. But he has not shot himself, right?
No.
Are there any other weapons in the house?
No. I mean, he's threatening, he's like, it's my birthday and I just want to die. And I don't think he will.
Have you ever done this before?
Never. And I don't think he honestly will, but.
Yeah, better to be safe than
Oh,
sorry.
no, he's in the garage. Oh, here he is, by himself with me.
Does he have the weapon?
No. No, you won't be able to cook eggs. Where's the gun? The rifle. The police. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Dude, don't threaten me.
Okay,
Can't do it.
did he say where the gun is?
He's the seat work on, he's sitting next to me. He's in the garage with me.
Okay. Do we know where the gun's at?
No, he put it away wherever it's at. He's sitting next to me in the garage,
Okay.
smoking a cigarette.
Okay, let's keep him in there, okay?
Yeah?
Is the garage open?
No, we're in the garage together.
But he did not bring the gun, he did not bring the gun into the garage, correct?
Correct.
Okay, what do you look like? What? He's a white male with our hair.
He's got gray hair.
Okay.
Oh, wait,
What?
what are you doing with what are you doing with the gun now?
Wait, does he have it with him?
Why?
Ma'am,
Fuck you!
ma'am, does he have the gun on him?
He's in the kitchen with the he's in the kitchen with the I'm in the garage, he's got gun.
He's got it in his hand again?
Yeah, he's got it in the kitchen. He's in the house, I'm in the kitchen, he's got gun.
Okay, he's in the kitchen?
He's in the house with the gun, with the rifle, it's a rifle, it's not a gun, it's a rifle, so I bought it for him for years of Uncle Henry gun.
Okay, you're in the garage?
Wait, whoa, what the fuck?
What's he doing?
He said he came here to die. Go out of here, I didn't come here to die. Now he's in here with me.
You're in there with him?
I didn't come, what? He's in the garage now. Dying with you? So what are you doing?
Okay.
What are you doing then? So what are you
Do you have
doing?
any medication?
No. 45-70. I know it's a 45-70, so what are you doing? Okay, so what are you doing? Go outside. I will.
Ma'am, are you
Then
both
what
still
are
in
you
the
doing
garage?
here? Yeah. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Ma'am, is he threatening to shoot you too?
No. What are you doing? Go outside.
Ma'am, you need to tell me if he moves and goes anywhere, okay?
He went in the kitchen.
Ma'am,
He went in the
is the
kitchen.
garage, okay, he's back in the kitchen?
Yeah.
Is the garage locked? Is there a door to get in?
Is the garage locked?
Like, do you have a door for police? Is there an entry door?
I can let the police in my garage, yeah. If they come, they knock on my great big garage door, I can let them in.
Hold on.
I don't want it. Oh my God, I can't.
Okay,
I don't want to do that.
we're here, ma'am, we're here. Ever open it? Can you go ahead and open the garage door up?
The big garage door out front.
What's
Do
that?
they want in? Do they want in?
They went in the garage,
Are they
but
here?
police are there. Can you go ahead and open the garage door for them?
Please.
Where? And he's in the kitchen with the gun? Where is he at? Does he have the police?
Yeah.
Okay, police are with you?
He's in the kitchen. He won't come out.
Okay, ma'am, I'm gonna let you go with police, okay?
Okay, so as we're listening to that, one of the things that struck me, and and the dispatcher and the call taker are kind of relaying this information to our crews. It started off, she was very calm and just saying, "Hey, this is something that's happening," but you could kind of tell, even though we couldn't see what's happening inside that house, you could kind of tell something happened, right? Her whole demeanor changed, and it went from, I don't think he's going to do something, I don't think he's going to do something, to now she doesn't want to die as well. So that is something that I think is important to understand, at least trying to get an idea of what his mindset is and how he's kind of escalating things where his wife is now seeing something change. So that's kind of being expressed out there to the call taker who's talking to our crews as they're responding to the scene. So we'll go ahead and play the next thing we'll do is we'll play the radio traffic. This is what our officers are hearing, and I believe we took the dead spaces out of this to make it a little bit more easier to get through a press conference. So go ahead and play that, please.
610-710, code 3 was 4112 Rustin near Clifton. Female caller Lori is reporting her husband's intoxicated, has a shotgun out, mentioning wanting to kill himself. Caller is currently in the living room. Male is also in the living room. The firearm is out. Subject's going to be a white male named Robert Schaefer, 4112 Rustin, code 3610.
Resting for a sec.
710. And crews en route to Ruskin, be advised. Robert's going to be wearing a black shirt, black shorts.
Okay.
706.
E20 of it there.
E20.
Is there a caller still on the line? Get in the house.
We'll check with the call taker. Be advised, he's not reported to have done this before. Be advised, he is now in the garage. No weapon is with him.
Okay. Do we still have her on the line?
Checking with the call taker. From for Rustin, be advised, the caller is also in the garage with him. If asking him where the rifle is, we do still have her on the line. Around for Rustin, be advised, the caller and the male subject are in the garage. I don't know where the rifle is now. They'll believe it's with him. There's goes for 24, going to Rustin. Advised he's in the kitchen, gun is in his hand. Continue, remain closed.
Still there in the kitchen.
Checking. For the call seeker, gonna be back in the garage.
Okay, we can hear. We're gonna need a way in. The front door is locked.
Copy. Oh, 6, be advised, our caller's also in the garage. For the Rustin, be advised, male's back in the kitchen. There's gonna remain closed. On those 6, do you want the caller to open the garage doors?
Yeah, they can.
Copy. Be advised, he's still in the kitchen with a firearm. We're attempting to get female to open the garage door. 706, checking your safety.
Oh, start our negotiators for right now. We're still trying to get things figured out.
Copy, start negotiators. Code 5.
Shots fired, roll up, ambulance right now.
Copy, shots fired, notifying medical. Someone else advise when medical can approach.
Not yet. Don't know if he's down. He retreated into the, house.
Copy.
Okay.
706, 50 shots are fired.
All right, thanks. Okay, so, kind of similar to the 911 call, right? So the officers responding to the scene. All right, so we have a suicide male. We know the wife's in there. No gun in his hands, Eventually, then it becomes, he's got the weapon. So as the officers are kind of responding to the scene, they're starting to run through scenarios in their mind in tactical situation, trying to figure out what they're gonna do. You've heard them talking about, we need to find a way in. Well, you know, one of our primary missions is to try to preserve life. And right now, we're worried about his wife becoming a hostage or, unfortunately in these situations, we've seen it way too often where a suicidal person kills their significant other first and then kills themselves. So immediately we're trying to figure out a way to get her out of that house. So the officers are responding. They know that he's got the weapon in his hand. And then as you can hear, the shots were fired and then he retreats back into the house. So now that kind of changes the scenario even further. We've got her out, but now we still have an armed suspect that's now barricaded himself inside the house. So that kind of changes the entire dynamic again, and we'll start talking about how that slows down and what we do. So before we get into that part, we're gonna start going through some body cameras and some in-car videos. Now, I think it was the last one we did on this. I started talking about how, body cameras are great for the police and for our communities, but they are not the panacea. They do not see everything. We saw last time over off of Sylvania Avenue, most of the body camera footage was based off of a shield, a car, because the officers are taking cover. And at that time I said, there's gonna come a day where we don't actually see the shooting happen or the suspect's actions happen. And we're getting a lot closer to that now. You'll see through these body camera videos that you can't really see the suspect. However, you can hear the officers' interaction with him. They're giving them instructions to put the weapon down. And then in the in-car camera, eventually you will get to see the suspect come out. So luckily we have a camera, but it's from a far distance. So this is kind of, there's that narrative out there that if it's not on a body camera, it didn't happen. Well, that's simply not true. And that's something that we need to get away from, and we need to understand that officers are doing things and can see things that a body camera cannot, because it's a fixed object on a chest where, as you can see now, we can swivel our heads, we can look around, we can see from our peripheral vision that a body camera may not show. So I just want to kind of address that, because that's a terrible narrative that eventually could cause issues for law enforcement and the community. So we'll go ahead and play this body camera right here.
Heads. Come on out, come on out, come on out. Come back here, come here, come here, come here. Come to my boys, come over here. Keep walking this way.
And this is the wife coming out right now.
Hey, keep coming. Ma'am, keep coming. Ma'am, can you go behind that van right there? Can you go back there? Window. I don't know. What's his name, man? Front door.
Door.
Hey, come to your left, come to your left, come to your left. He went back inside.
Okay. So, you know, they were dealing with her coming out of the garage door, so they're expecting him to come out of the garage door as well. He eventually shows up at the front door. Officers, you know, telling him to try to put the gun down. You know, this one's, you heard kind of different shots happening at different times and place there, and it's kind of based on the officers' positions, where they see the suspect, where there's actually a threat to them, and where they view the threat. That kind of dictates when the officer fires. We'll kind of go into the next body camera and just kind of move through all the body cameras first.
Hey, show us your hands! Show us your hands! Put the guy, put the guy down!
Okay, so just kind of a different angle from a different officer to try to give you an idea of what the scene looks like. So this one here is from the dash cam that I talked about. This gives us an overall view of the scene, but it is far away. So you can see the White House there on the left there. That's where you're gonna see him come out the front door. Okay, so that's the whole environment video, right? So it's pretty quick. It was hard to see, right? So you guys get to see. We will provide you guys with all the package here. But when he does come out, you can see his hands come up into a kind of a shooting stance. But as I told you, it is far away. So we'll go through a couple stills here, just kind of pointing out where the suspect is. And then on this one, you can see it a little bit better. You can kind of see his arm up. He's holding a rifle at that point. And this is the weapon he had. It's a Henry lever action rifle, and it's called the 4570. It's, you know, a hunting rifle. All right, so as I talked about, once the officers fired, he was shot 3 times. He crawled back in or pulled himself back inside the house and closed the door. So at that point, we kind of switched tactics a little bit. You heard from him calling for negotiators. They also call out the SWAT team. So negotiators start talking. He's not picking up a phone, so they're using the PA system. But they're also found that when they call the home phone, he has an answering machine. So they're able to actually start talking through the answering machine that is loud enough inside the house for him to hear. So at some point, they start seeing and hearing some movement at the front door. So they think maybe he's still laying there by the door. The negotiators tell him, hey, if that's you by the door, and you know, if you get rid of your weapon and stuff like that, you know, kind of bang on the door for us and let us know. He does reply. So at that point, we realize that we still have an individual that's probably wounded inside the house, and that at some point we're going to have to kind of speed up our tactics in order to do life-saving measures. So we do that. Our SWAT team kind of comes up to the house. They're able to determine that he's by the front door and that they don't see any weapon in his hand. So they immediately make entry into the house. Our tactical medics are on scene, and they come up immediately and start doing life-saving aid on the suspect, while our partners, TFD, were staged the whole time. They come up with a gurney and escort him back down the street to the ambulance where they take him to UTMC. As I said, he was shot 3 times. He's had surgery at UTMC. He's still in the hospital at this time. But thanks to Dr. Sauber, he was on scene. He kind of runs our tactical medic program. He's a great asset for us, and he's very enthusiastic about helping the police and being involved in the community. So that is a great program that we have that helps us immediately start rendering aid in what would normally be a tactical situation that our medics wouldn't come into. So that allows us to bridge that gap between a completely secure scene and a active, you know, shooting and or, you know, barricaded scene. So TFD were on scene the entire time. They were kitted out, ready to roll, immediate action. So thank you to them. You know, our officers that responded to the scene, that's another tough scene that they're, you know, have to run through the motions, you know, the changing tactics, the changing information. It's not an easy scene for them to respond to, but I think they handle themselves amazingly. So thanks to them, thanks to our dispatchers and our call takers for getting us that information and providing us as much information as we can to try to resolve a scene that's obviously very tense. You could hear it in the 911 calls. So, I mean, that is our presentation, so I'll take any questions right now.
So what's the status of Robert at this moment?
So right now, he is still at UTMC. He had surgery, so he's at this point recovering. He's not able to be released yet.
Was there a third officer wearing a body cam?
Yes, so the third officer's body camera was completely, there was just no value to the scene because it didn't show anything at all from an obscured angle, the way he was facing the scene, facing the suspect. I mean, those things are all available to everybody if you want those. But yeah, it just didn't add any value to the scene.
We've seen some videos in the past that have been more clear in seeing exactly what the person is, especially the juvenile from a couple of months ago. This one feels like it's a little bit of an obstructed view. Is that more difficult for you when you're doing your investigation, when you can't clearly see exactly, at least for me, from looking from here, it doesn't look completely clear.
Yeah, so, and that's the thing, right? So as we're progressing and as we're having more incidents, our officers are getting better at tactical situations. So we review all these things. And so now they're taking better cover. They're using shields more. So we're providing them with more equipment to make make them safer. Unfortunately, that often obscures that camera. This one was a little bit further away because they were behind the car thinking he's going to come out of the garage, and he shows up from the front of the house. So it's just a matter of what's available for cover at that time and where they happen to set up. So yeah, it's not the best video, but it helps us at least hearing it and seeing what we can see. And then obviously the most important part are, talking to the victims and talking to our officers. Our officers' word and what they're saying and what they see at the scene go a long way in our investigation.
And you mentioned the narrative on body cams. Is it difficult to go out to the public when you can't clearly see it like this and to say to them, this is X, Y, Z, what happened, when they'll say, well, I can't see it very clearly on there. There might be a shield, but I should be able to see it clearly.
Yeah, so it is difficult because there are some people that feel if I can't see it, it didn't happen. And that's just simply not true. For hundreds of years, we policed without body cameras. And at that time, an officer's word meant something. And an officer's description of a scene meant something. It still does. That has not changed. The body camera is just another tool that helps us view a scene and explain a scene a little bit better, but it's not always going to be there to show you exactly what occurred.
Kind of review what your training is for situations like this, just so people have a general idea of when a situation like this happens, what our officers think.
Yeah, so I mean, we obviously train a lot throughout the academy, and then we do updated training. We're always constantly doing, officer response to active shooters. We're doing that kind of training on a regular basis. And what we're training, and we're seeing more as these incidents happen, is that we're training to officer safety and to team approaches if you can. Solo officer response is still there if there's an active shooting. But when there's not an active shooting, make sure that you're in a good tactical position to approach. Make sure you're taking cover, making sure that you're given clear directions, and make sure you're trying to de-escalate and talk people down. Those are all things that we're training, and officers are using that to our advantage to try to resolve situations peacefully.
And one conversation I don't think we have enough after these incidents is about the officer's mental health. So after they go through something like this, what kind of follows that?
Yeah, so we immediately do debriefings with the officers, and they sit one-on-one with clinicians that will talk to them, and they get kind of a setting with them and just talk about PTSD and those kinds of things and what to look out for. And the officers have unlimited follow-ups if they need to talk to somebody, and just make sure they're in a good place. What we want to be able to do is make sure that we're taking care of our officers so they can take care of our community. If an officer is not in a good place, then those were when bad things happen out in the community. So we are very proactive on officer wellness, and we have expanded our units and increased the amount of therapy that they're allowed to go to and that we give them, and we make some of the debriefings and talking mandatory, because it's something that we feel is so important.
So Chief, what kind of charges is Robert looking at once he's out of the hospital?
So right now he does not have any charges. I believe they're going to probably face some felonious assault charges for pointing weapons at the officers. And then
I want to talk about aim. I was at the scene and I noticed that one of the cars, the neighbor's car, had multiple gunshots into it. Obviously, you think that your officers behave properly here, but are we concerned about, you know, maybe someone getting hit or just not hitting the target properly in that kind of situation?
yeah, so it's standard procedure for us when this kind of thing happens that we're removing residents from the houses. We're getting them away that are surrounding it to make sure that we're, you know, there's nobody innocent bystanders in the, you know, line of fire. So we do that as much as we can. You know, you talk about aim, and, you know, there's all kinds of studies out there that happens when there's, you know, target practice and there's real life, right? So you take a 95% shooter on the range and he drops down to a 20% shooter when a real life happens. As you saw, officers ducking down as the shots are being fired because they're going behind cover. So it's not an easy situation, and there is a, you know, a small silhouette of him at some point because he's kind of bladed at the door. So, you know, our officers are, you know, doing the best they can under those highly stressful situations.
So on that note, how would you summarize your officer's behavior, just given that these circumstances were as difficult as they were?
So at this point, obviously, our investigation is not complete in this whole incident, but initial look at this says our officers acted within policy, and, you know, our officers are alive, and, you know, his wife is alive, and even he's alive. So those are all good endings to a situation that could have been far worse.
What sort of extra difficulty does it bring to a situation when you already hear the person is suicidal and then your officers start approaching?
Yeah, so it's tough, right? Because there's a fine line between suicide and homicidal. So it's when somebody's in that mindset, you have to be, you know, highly aware that if he's willing to shoot himself, he's likely to either willing to shoot at you and or maybe he wants you to shoot him. So those are things that happen. You know, the suicide by cop is a real thing. And sometimes maybe I don't have enough courage to do it myself, but I can point a weapon at you and you'll do it for me. So those are all things that have to go through their head and they have to be thinking about.
And I was just doing a quick bit of research. Officer, is it Whitaker?
Whitaker, yes.
Okay. Was he also involved in an officer-involved shooting in January?
Yes.
Okay. Were the other ones involved in another one?
No.
Before? Okay. Is that any cause for concern to have one officer, two officer involved in 1 year?
Yeah, it's a very short time period for him. So yes, is it concern? Yes, absolutely it is. Because at some point, you know, we're putting a lot of stress on our officers, and we're putting a lot of things into their psyche that, you know, a normal human being shouldn't have to deal with. So, you know, we will obviously continue to monitor him and follow up with him and make sure that he is in a good place, that he is coming out of this okay, and that he is ready to be back on the street.
Do you know which officer fired first?
Actually, I do not.
Okay. Will your investigation bring that to light?
Yes.
What was the name of that negotiator that ultimately was able to bring Mr. Robert out of the home?
So, Officer,
Emmanuel Henry had responded first.
yeah, but it was
I'm not sure who the.
former Blade reporter,
Oh,
Taylor Dungeon, Sergeant Dungeon. So she was the one that was actually on the phone with him with the answer machine at that time. So she was the one telling him, hey, hit the door, and letting us know that he was okay.
Going back to that car that sustained some gunshot damage, is that going to be something that the city's going to pay for, or does that come out of the person's wallet?
So they'll be referred to the law department, and the law department will deal with that. Okay? Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.